What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
The More Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms.
If you like what you watch, then don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates on The More Show. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new weekly television and radio shows.
The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online, you're now watching the UK's only alternative late night talk show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online, you're now watching the UK's only alternative late night talk show, and I'm Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. My guest today is Steve and Barbara Rother. Now, over 15 years ago, Steve and Barbara's life changed when Steve, at the time a general contractor, began receiving messages. Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online, you're now watching the UK's only alternative late night talk show, and I'm Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. My guest today is Steve and Barbara Rother. Now, over 15 years ago, Steve and Barbara's life changed when Steve, at the time, who was a general contractor, began receiving messages from a group of angels simply known as the Group. The messages were full of love and empowerment, and Steve began to share them on the internet. Since that time, Steve and Barbara Rother have presented both interactive trainings and seminars in 23 countries. They have created the Lightworker Evolution Center, where they give a full line of interactive trainings online each month. Steve's 5 books with the group's messages are available in 16 languages. Steve and Barbara are 5-time presenters at the United Nations on 2 continents, and as far as we're aware, they're the only people to teach a channeling class at the United Nations. They are also the hosts of the Virtual Light Broadcast, a 3-hour internet TV broadcast live to a global audience of dedicated light workers from Las Vegas each month. Steve and Barbara Rother, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. We're delighted to be with you.
It is excellent to have you both on because obviously, it's been a while since talking on and off to try to get this interview arranged. So I'm just grateful to have you guys on today.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. Such a marvelous movie. We've watched what happened. We both had a very similar focus, and now we've kind of both gone a very slightly different way for both of us. So it's a good time to come back together and see where we're at.
What I like is that we're all supporting each other. That's the main thing.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Absolutely. And that's a key as well. Because obviously when I've come onto your show previously, well, I say previously, I think it was almost a year ago now. And so much has happened since then. But we'll get into all that. But just for the audience that don't know too much about yourselves, let's just talk about your background to begin with. Now, you've been together for 41 years, which is fantastic.
I know, that's changed. It's actually almost 43 years.
No way. Is it 43 years? Wonderful. Congratulations. That's absolutely incredible in the sense that you've both gone through such, amazing changes in a sense. So let's just go back here. Let's go back a bit to where, you both had, in a sense, let's call them regular jobs. And I believe, Steve, that you was in construction, and Barbara, that I'm not too sure that what you were doing, but you can tell us in just a second. Sure. Now, Barbara, you were more into the spiritual subjects than Steve was. Is that right?
I was definitely on my spiritual path, and he had enough of church and religion. I found a Church of Religious Science, a very non-traditional type of church that is very similar to what our work is all about.
It really is. It's very similar.
But I was so excited about it that I would go on Sundays. Steve would stay home and take care of the boys, and I was on my way of becoming a practitioner with this church. Mm-hmm. And then this happened.
Well, and basically what happened is that on one New Year's Eve, she invited me to something that her church was putting on. And it was an intention-setting ceremony for the new year. And that was fascinating to me. So basically what we were going to do is get together with a bunch of people and decide what our intent for the next year was on New Year's Eve. And it was a very interesting process. I'll tell you just a little bit about it because it was... I'm a contractor. I lived in a world of 4-letter words. What can I tell you? Basically, I lived in a totally different world than I live in now.
Very macho man type of thing.
Very manly, very, macho type. So here I am going to this intention setting ceremony. And my whole idea was just to get through the night without looking foolish. That was the whole purpose. To try and sit there and smile and nod just as much as I could without letting anybody know that I was petrified or that I didn't know what they were talking about.
Well, all these people were talking about Reiki and spiritual and energy, and he's like, okay, what have I gotten myself into here?
So anyway, we got through the night, no problem. Midnight came. We all hugged and kissed. It was real nice. We all sent everybody home. And then the idea was, if you wanted to come back and complete the ceremony, you had to come back at 5 o'clock in the morning. And you had to meet on the beach, very special beach in Del Mar, California, Coronado, California, where you can actually watch the sunrise. We're on the side where you get the sunsets, not the sunrise. But basically on this particular beach, you could watch the sunrise. So we were all going to be there and complete the ceremony. Well, now I'm feeling better because I'm a contractor. I can do something. So I get out there and I build this monster fire before anybody gets there.
A big bonfire on the beach. It was nice.
And it was nice. So I started feeling a little bit more a part of it at that time. And the whole idea was we were going to take our list of things that we wanted to release and throw them in the fire. And everybody was going to say ho and let it go. And then we were going to read our list of things that we wanted to do. Very simple. The gentleman starts off. He takes a stick. He says, I'm going to start it. There's only about 12 people out of the 30 that were there the night before. But he says, I'm going to start it off, and he throws it up, and he throws his stuff in the fire, and he releases it, and everybody goes, ho! And he holds his things up, and he says, I'm being told that Steve needs to go first.
He was trying to hide.
So he walks over to me and hands me this thing, and I'm now going, I'm looking at Barbara with these eyes going, oh, I'm going to get you for this later. And what happened was that was the moment that the group came into me. And it was the most overwhelming feeling that I can tell you about.
Unexpected.
All of a sudden, I started crying. I could not stop crying.
Yeah.
I was so filled with joy. I was supposed to be talking and doing the ceremony, and I was just simple. And all of a sudden, I opened my eyes, and I realized that all these people were standing there holding their hands up to me, sending me energy. And I thought it was some sort of metaphysical handshake or something. I didn't know what that was. So I just tried to gain my composure and open up this list that I was supposed to read. And all I could see was one word. And I said, I will be a light worker. And that's where it began.
Later on, I said to him, I said, what's a light worker? He says, I don't know, but we're going to be one.
And I hear all this laughing over my shoulder. And I thought some other people on the beach that morning at 5 o'clock in the morning were making fun of us. Well, turns out there was nobody on the beach. That was the first time I heard from the group. And
Wow.
it was their laughter that has become very signature now.
And you never forget that first time, do you?
No.
Because it's such an experience where it's beyond your own reasonable doubt. It's your own personal experience. You cannot explain it to anyone, but you know that did actually happen.
I didn't know what was happening, but I knew that our lives were about to change, and they did. That's an understatement.
I not only changed positions, but I basically evolved who I was. That was the interesting part about it.
Now this took place. Was it on your birthday as well? When this?
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was
Well, that's
on
quite
my
significant
birthday.
as well.
January 1st.
January 1st.
January the 1st.
Yes, it was. The whole thing was full of synchronicities, full of what the group calls cosmic winks.
Quite a birthday present.
And basically,
yes.
it was basically saying, hang on. And they told me that. They said, are we in for, I said, are we in for a ride? They said, take a breath, reach around, grab your backside with both hands because you're getting ready to move. And basically we did. Everything in our lives changed at that point.
Right. Now, just
Every part of it.
prior to that point as well, had you been coming across any spiritual texts, which in books especially, obviously, that's what I mean, that really influenced you at that time, or was this more after that experience?
Well, Barbara had been doing a lot of study in spirituality in different areas. I was only interested in one particular area that I thought was fascinating. And it was actually a book by Ruth Montgomery, who turns out to be an incredible channel, and kind of interesting because the people she channeled was Art, Lily, and the group, she called them, which was fascinating to me. But she just meant it as a collective. Well, we call our group the group by default because they don't want a name.
No.
That's the weird part about it.
No.
They didn't want the labels. They didn't want the name. They didn't want us giving our power to something other than the actual message and how it applied in your life.
Well, you knew that the entities you were feeling were multiple. And so at one time you had just said, well, this group on my shoulder,
That was it.
say this. And so everybody started calling them the group.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. And what a special experience as well. Had you come across then afterwards material like the Seth material or Cryon or Edgar Casey? Well, have you come across Seth, for example?
Well, no, I hadn't. I tried to read Seth because it was a channel book, very popular at the time that Ruth Montgomery was very popular. And we're talking the 70s and 80s. So these were times when I was reading things. But, I was reading them for fun. I didn't know whether to believe it or not, to be really honest with you. And I would read books on astral projection, fun things like that were kind of out of the body type thing and just kind of playful things. So I can't say I wasn't into spirituality, but certainly not the way I'm into now.
No.
And I think all those things were needed. And then one day I ran across a book, and this book just brought me immediately to tears. It felt like home. it felt like the person was talking specifically to me. And that was a crayon book. And that was a whole level of awakening that took place at that point.
Wow.
More of a explosion of
Explosion.
energy.
Well, I had a
Yes.
I had a place to go with it.
Yes.
I had a place to go with it. We had a group of people that were meeting in the Cryon chat room. I was actually able to start my channeling.
I think he
Incredible.
felt he found spiritual family then.
I did.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And okay, so and that's why you're sort of close friends, even to this day, with Lee Carroll as well, who's come on this show, who's a great guy as well.
Wonderful
Yes,
man.
Yeah, we love Lee.
Yeah,
It's been incredible.
absolutely.
Yes.
And both Lee and Jeff Hoppy and several of us, I've always considered Jeff to be my younger brother and Lee to be my older brother.
Definitely.
So, and we're all very close in age. That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, they are dear friends
Yeah,
and
they're all dear
family.
friends.
And, even before I understood about channeling, I was into Abraham Hicks, Esther Hicks with the
Oh,
Abraham
yes, yes.
information. I love that information. I still do. And I find it very similar to what we teach.
Very similar to the messages. It's kind of very fascinating to see
The
how
actual
the synchronicities of it all.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the Hicks material, as Esther has said in many interviews, was influenced heavily by coming across the Seth material initially. And
Awesome.
this is what opened their doors. I mean, the Seth material also made a big influence on Louise Hayes, Deepak Chakra, Marianne Williamson, and many others as well. But I think the material comes to you sometimes when it's with what resonates to you, in a sense, to help you.
That's true. I had this beautiful Seth book. It was about this big and leather bound, and it was the nature of reality. And it was just something. And I tried several times to read it, and I just couldn't. And
No.
it was what you're saying. I just couldn't understand. So something was blocking me from getting that focus, but others were being introduced to me, and that
Yes.
is very well. Sometimes they don't want us over influenced in other areas that
Right.
we can be fresh in. So
Well,
I think that's kind of what it felt like to me.
Absolutely. And okay, now with yourself, Barbara, as well, when Steve started to channel, had you yourself come across material in channeling as well, or was this kind of new to yourself?
Well, I didn't understand channeling, and I was raised devout Catholic. And when Steve said that he was becoming a channel and talking to spirit, I said, "Only saints can do that, and you're no saint."
She knew that.
I was teasing with him, but I didn't understand it, and it scared me because I felt him totally changing. My very first introduction to this type of world and teachings was Shirley MacLaine. I think the book was Out on a Limb.
That's right.
That was my introduction. Then
That's
I found
right.
Abraham and all that. But when he started channeling, I didn't know what was happening. We were going through a transitional stage of our lives.
Sure.
It affected everything, our finances, our work totally changed. Everything. It was tossed up in the air to see how it would land.
Oh, yeah.
And our relationship was really in trouble because we were growing separately because I went into fear. And I think I had the experience so that I can help people who connect with us and saying, my husband doesn't understand what I'm going through.
Right.
What can I do? And
Yes.
I have the experience to say, his fear is really valid, and I can help in valid points and how they can help reach out to each other.
That's very
Communication
beautiful.
is the
Yeah.
key.
That's very beautiful. That is, because, like you say, when people come across people who are getting into channeling, couples as well. Yeah, at least you can be a rock in a sense of someone that's been through that. And what was the pinnacle point for you then that sort of said okay, let's go with this. I'll support us in a sense. You go for it, Stephen, and because in some relationships, it is they can be very. It can be where where it's very traditional, where the woman will turn around and say, "Look, listen, if you're not going to support me, I can't be with you."
That's it. That
That's
was
right. Well, yes, I said you need to get a real job with benefits and a steady paycheck.
it. She had her list.
Yes, yes. But luckily, I had that. I had
So,
a very
yeah,
good job.
that's right.
Through I worked through the government for a child nutrition program. Loved it. Did a great job for 12 years, and I think it was the first time that I heard my own guides, because I heard a voice like I'd never heard before that said, "Trust and let him find his passion and support him."
How beautiful.
And I didn't understand that, but I knew that I had to. So I said, I will have the income. You go and do what you need to do.
I had a job I was working, and I had just been fired. The first job I'd ever been fired in my life. And it was perfect because the timing was there. The writings were coming in, the channeling was coming in, people were starting to, ask for more. And I called Barbara up and I said, honey, I know how much you wanted all these things in this job, but I've just been fired. And that was the pinnacle moment for her, because she turned around and she said, good. Now we can do what you were supposed to do.
Wow.
Right. When those words came out, I was
said, excuse me, who do I have on the phone here?
Yeah. Where'd you find a
Yeah,
woman like
so-
Barbara from? Yeah, that's fantastic.
Exactly.
I know, but it did work out well.
Of course
and,
it did,
And he
yes.
started going and doing the seminars, and he'd come back and
Yes.
share it with me. And I'd say, you're having way too much fun out there.
right.
And so I said, I'm going to quit my job and join you, and we're going to do this together. And that's
Incredible.
when he said, wait a minute. And I said, trust, remember that word, and in no time at all, our
everything
income
happened
was made
very
up,
fast.
and we began the journey together.
Oh,
A
it's
beautiful life.
beautiful, and it's so incredible to be hearing this, because it resonates a lot. It will resonate with a lot of people going through the same thing, and when
Yes.
they come across this interview. So obviously, when we do this kind of work, there are those that may say that, to try to make money out of, to try to make a mega amounts of money out of spiritual work is not meant to be. Yes, you can
Sure.
make a living from it, but to try to become, super rich is just not going to happen. It's not always wise to keep your toes in completely the spiritual world. You do need the balance where, you're in, the 3D world, someone would call the actual world, and the spiritual side as well, just to keep you balanced. What would you say to that then, guys?
Number one, I'm going to go backwards for you, but I absolutely believe that balance is very important. It's not just about raising yourself spiritually. We have to use it. If we can't incorporate it into our daily lives, it's useless. And that's directly from the group. And so I'll tell you, that one's very important to them, that this be practical magic that we're working with. The other part is old energy. The old energy, very simple, was built on lack. Our whole idea and our whole fear of not charging for spirituality is built on a basis of lack. We don't believe in lack. We believe in abundance. We believe that people block themselves from their abundance many times. We did for many, many years. As we turn around and look back, we can see it. We can try to help other people move past it with the message from the group, which is all about the abundance being everywhere in every part of your life. If you're looking for it over here, recognize it over here first.
Well, that's true. I don't think it's our goal to be rich doing this work, but we do expect to be abundant, because abundance is like a circle. Abundance in finances, that's an important part of living, but in our health, relationship, in all areas. And that's what we strive for. I've always told Steve, if we were to win the lottery, we would put that money right back into the business, because it's our passion.
We would go places that couldn't afford to bring us, basically, if that happened. And the other part about it is that if you're searching for a teacher, for a healer, for someone to really learn for, I would apply the same attributes that if I were looking for a brain surgeon. Would I want the person that made minimum wage, or would I quite honestly want the person that maybe I had to stand in line to talk to? And that is also a
That's
part
true.
of the truth. We set our own value.
That's true, actually.
And in the reality, it's not about how much money we make. It's about what flows through us and what we get to do with that money.
And I think it's important that people know that the money they spend toward their spiritual path is an investment in themselves. We've seen it in the past before, that if people get something, sometimes if they get something for free, it's like they don't get as much out of it as if they had invested money, time, and themselves.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and the reason I ask this question is twofold, a bit for myself, but for others as well, obviously, out there that are going through the same thing. That, well, for yourself then as well, Steve, when you started dipping your toes in this and making it more of a full-time income, I guess, were you giving readings through your channelings as well? Or was it just more courses that were paying the sort of, to keep you afloat?
No, I started literally, what happened in the very beginning was that she kept us afloat. My business, my contracting business, closed down almost almost by itself. When you're a contractor, you bid on jobs here in the United States, and you bid on them, and sometimes you get them, and sometimes you don't. And you'd bid one, and you'd adjust your bid and come in the next time a little lower or whatever you needed. And I couldn't get a job to save my life. I had to let our people go. We had to let our employees go. My partner that I was working with, he had to go on and find other work. And I started writing at that time. I started channeling the group. And very soon I did start doing sessions. I would love to say that they supported me, but Steve still had a belief system of the old energy. And like we talked about, so when I first started doing sessions, I think I charged $33 for an hour and a half session.
Right.
Right.
So there's no way I could have supported myself or my family on that in the first place anyway. I had to evolve past my thinking, past my own limiting belief systems. And I kept asking the group, how am I going to support myself? And they said, well, you stop limiting yourself, number one.
It sounds so simple, though, doesn't it? But it
does.
Right. Okay. So that's how you do it. That makes a lot of sense.
And then pretty soon people started asking us, would you consider I think we got a call from somebody up in Canada and said, I have a Thursday night group. Would you consider coming up and talking to us? There's about 40 of us.
Was that when you first started channeling out loud in front of people?
Yeah, it was.
He went to Canada without me before I started traveling with him. And he calls me up and he said, our host asked me to channel out loud.
I'd only done it on a keyboard before. I'd never actually put vocals behind it.
And I said, did you do it? And he says, yes. And it was wonderful. But he was scared.
Oh, sure.
Of course, I can imagine the first time in front of an audience as well, and I've got that experience coming up in a few months as well. So it's
Good.
Yeah, and I can resonate with you with the money thing. And the reason I'm asking that is because my channelings have told me that I'm going to make a lot of money from what I'm going to do with my businesses, but the difference is the reason I'm going to make it is because everything is going to be put back into the spiritual side. I would not be allowed to make it if it was not for that as well.
That's what we do.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
where all this comes from.
Absolutely. So it's not a gift of a curse or anything like that, but it is. There seems to be a system in place, shall we say, that when you're ready to be at that space, that you become open to these things. I mean, just to let you know my experience as well. I went through a terrible illness over Christmas, and I'd lost everything. I'd lost my partner. I'd lost my business. I'd lost absolutely everything in a sense. I'd moved back to my hometown of Cleethorpes, and it was at that lowest point that it started to happen, and I just trusted it. And so far, it's been an amazing experience, even though it's taken a while right now to get the book, the chapters done for the first book. But I suppose it's you would never look back on your experience, neither would you, and say, well, I'm so glad I trusted.
Oh, I never would have dreamt that I would have written a book. Steve was not interested in school when he was there. I didn't learn much. My grammar was terrible. My writing skills, everything else was horrible. So that was actually attained by a mutual friend, Zandy Sedgbeer.
Learning process.
With that. But basically, she was the editor of my first couple of books, and she encouraged me to get this important information into a forum that other people could use. And very scary financially to bet on yourself like that when you're just starting this new business, we felt. And the group just said, don't look back. Just put one foot in front of the other and don't look back.
Wow.
And I did. We did. We even had a family meeting where we drew in, we were very close to our family, and we drew in our family, all of our family, my father and everybody, and we laid out the possibilities of, this next venture, and they all said, go for it. Don't
that is
hesitate.
And with your kids as well, obviously they've grown up around your work in a sense. How have they accepted what you do as well?
The oldest boy works for us, so he's in the other room right now.
Fantastic.
He works for us, and he and his wife are very spiritual in these areas. Our youngest son does not. He's very spiritual, but doesn't call it that. Mm-hmm. He's a mechanic. he's an incredibly intuitive person to where many other mechanics that have problems bring their problems to him because he can sort of find it. So he understands what we're talking about, but doesn't like the particular words that I use to teach. He wouldn't come to one of my classes. Let me put it that way.
I would say that he is spiritual in his own sense.
Yes.
He wouldn't be into this work or like you said, come to a seminar, but he knows that he can create magic.
That's it. So he's got the essence of it, but he went a slightly different path. It's fascinating.
Incredible and really amazing stuff. And that's so beautiful. Again, I'll use that word. I keep using it quite a bit, but it's so lovely that, your son and his wife is working for yourself as well and with yourself to spread the message and the work that you're doing. And that's just, that's worth the weight in gold, that is. So anyone out there, just take heed of this. That if you follow your intuition, it will not let you down neither. Okay, so obviously you've written a number of books over the many years. Some great books as well, and we will move on to them soon. Just before we sort of wrap up with the channeling side, when you first started channeling, how is it different to the way you do it now?
Oh, well, in the beginning, I was on a chat room, so everything was on the keyboard. And it allowed me to sit there and just kind of, with my eyes closed, and I'm not that good of a typist at that time, but because we're talking 15 years ago, the internet was brand new, just to kind of know. The chat room the message board we were in was one of the very first message boards on the internet, actually. So literally, this was even before AOL got started, and it really started taking over at that point. And then we started meeting in AOL. And what happened was that channeling process would come through me. I would be sitting there at my keyboard crying my eyes out. I don't know what the deal was with the tears.
Well,
but
when
the
you feel the
tears
home,
in the beginning would not stop. For probably the first 5 years, every single time I channeled, I would cry. And it was... I had to learn how to breathe through the crying, because the first thing you want to do when you cry is close your throat. You can't do that. You have to breathe and be able to speak.
Well, it's beautifully overwhelming to feel so connected to spirit.
But basically, it was like there was a lot of clearing. After about 5 or 6 years, that kind of subsided, and I still experience it when they want to share something.
Oh,
We
yeah.
have a lot of that.
Oh,
But for many years, you channeled with your eyes closed.
Yes.
you
And
did,
that was-
did you?
Well, that was easier at the beginning, because I just basically somebody told me something at another channel, not Lee Carroll, but another channel told me, said, don't forget to sit up straight, put your hands in your lap with your palms up. Let's see, what else do you tell me?
Don't cross your legs.
Don't cross your legs. Don't cross any, all common sense, wonderful ideas. Well, the group came in, they said, why are you sitting like that? And they said, is that really comfortable? And I said, not really, but I'm supposed to sit there. They said, you can sit anywhere you want. We're going to talk to you while you're in the bathroom. So just don't even mess. and they've gotten literally irreverent with a lot of things, which is fun for me.
Well, that's interesting. So when was the period then when you sort of, as other channels do, like Esther Hicks and others, where you just kept your eyes open, yet you were, in a deeper state, in a sense?
There was one time they told me they were going to open my eyes. They told me I could open my eyes, and I did. I almost went home in that exercise. It was a very small group. I think it was a group of about 30 or 40 people. It was the Wings channel. And I literally almost stepped across the veil at that point. So there was a lot of things going on. I didn't think about it, and it didn't happen again for many years. And then one time in a Cryon conference with Lee Carroll and Jeff Hoppe on stage. The three of us are doing a channel, and the group, I open my eyes. Well, I wear glasses, so I'm not able to see perfectly, even if I do open my eyes, and I don't wear contacts. So I could see, but what I could see was so beautiful. It was
Wow.
It was almost like
The
I
energy
could
field
see
of
the
the
love
heart,
that
yes.
they had for me.
Because he wasn't focused in, but you were looking from your third eye. Yeah.
It was unbelievable. So
Wow.
from that, I have to say, from that experience on, I was too selfish to close their eyes.
I love it.
That's the reality.
But there's something about his eyes that change when he's channeling. They seem more alive, brighter, and I can feel a difference. Even his voice doesn't change that much, but I can definitely feel a different presence when he's channeling. And it's such a privilege, an honor to sit next to him and feel that. I'm always next to him.
Yes.
And I maybe you're familiar, but at the end of a channel, from the very beginning of our work, I would come up to him and kiss him on the top of the head
Yes.
to ground him because he was so connected with
See,
home.
she's been doing it so much, I've lost my hair up here.
I wanted to make sure that he stayed here
Yeah.
with me and didn't want
Yeah.
to go home.
No, that's
Because
right. His
it
work is
so
here right
beautiful.
now. That's right. That's right. Oh, that's a very. I've seen you do that as well. Yes, and that's it. Just helps grounding. That's right. Okay. There was so many questions coming out there as you were talking about the channeling.
May I open up a quick subject? that is
Absolutely,
gonna be
yes.
very important to all your people who are thinking they are channeling themselves. The hardest thing is trust, guys. The hardest thing is trusting yourself to bring it through. It's not that you won't taint it. You're going to taint it. You can't read anything perfect. But understand, because when I started saying that, I really wanted to be the perfectly clear channel for the group. I didn't want to be tainted with any of my emotions, my wants, desires, anything of that nature. And I said, how can I be perfectly clear? And they said, you can't and you won't. And they said, we chose you because of your color and your unclarity. And because of your personality and your experiences, you have that ability to bring it into your life and use it.
Everybody can bring through their own channeling with their flavor of the truth, we like to say, because, we're all uniquely have this message to bring out.
Yeah.
What most of the time people do is they feel the message coming through, but then they think about it and go, oh, I can't say that. I'll sound foolish. I can't say. Just let it come out and share it with friends. We encourage people to get together with a room full of people you feel safe with and practice channeling.
Just open up to it.
That is so true, Barbara. Yeah, that is so
One
true.
of the first things we do in our channeling exercise, we get people to stand on their chairs and act like a monkey.
Or
Do
something silly.
to get themselves laughing so they can release a little bit
Well,
of that fear of looking foolish.
My channel always tells me when I'm in that state, because I don't do it often, only for the book I've done it so far, but it always tells me that I take life too seriously. Life's not being spiritual and not having a laugh is not being spiritual at all. It's not what you're here to do. We take it way too seriously.
I absolutely agree with it. The language of laughter is, the language of angels is laughter.
Definitely.
It's very simple.
We bring a lot of humor in our work.
Yeah, we love well, that's what they say. They say, if we find you getting too serious, we'll sneak up behind you and tickle your funny bone to remind you that it's just a game.
That's right.
And we're supposed to be having fun.
Well, it's true what you said there as well, Barbara, in the sense that I think what you were saying as well, without putting words in your mouth, was that we bring our own flavour into the channel. So, yes, as the Seth material did say as well, even with Jane Roberts, that another material said that when the information is coming through, it's still coming through you as a filter in a sense.
Yes.
That's right. You will reach some people that we won't.
Right. That's right. They had a beautiful expression because we were asked questions. We used to do a lot of live question and answers in our live seminars, and we were asked questions in Belgium. I'll never forget the guy who asked the question. Big group of people, and he said, "What's the difference between you guys, and this message over here, and this message over here? And how come you don't always agree about everything?" And I thought that was a really interesting question. Mm-hmm. The group came up and they said, this is what we called the ice cream channel, because they said, you love ice cream on planet Earth. And part of the reason you love ice cream, not just because of the taste and the way it makes your mouth feel, but also because you have so many flavors. It's one of the beautiful things when you think about ice cream, you think about which flavor, which choice. And that's the same with channeling. Now, they said, we are the ice cream, you are the flavors.
Yes.
Yes, and everybody has their ability if they only touch into that. People have asked me over the years, well, Barbara, you're next to Steve. He's channeling all the time. Do you channel? And the beginning of our work, I say, oh, no, not me. He has the gift. But then I started saying, well, wait a minute now. I've always called it women's
Yeah.
intuition. I've always had a strong sense of a message coming through, and I've learned to listen to it. So I channel in my way, but our work is nothing about spiritual competition. It's a blend of who we are. He does have the gift of the words coming out and does it so just
Well, it's
magnificently.
in this room, she speaks.
Yes.
She talks all the time.
Well,
so
we
she
with our
does her
work,
own
we do a
too.
dance.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
dance, and that's a beautiful part because it's very challenging, and there's very few of us that have really done a lot of that. There are 5 or 6 groups or channels that have worked with their wives in that way.
Well, a lot of times Steve will have this message, and it's so much to think about, and then I'll just kind of sum it up in human terms.
In about 5 seconds, she takes that whole 30-minute channel and she makes more sense of it than the group.
Well, I
did.
don't know about that, but between the two of us, I think we're understood.
Oh yes, no. There's some very deep connection with you two. That's why you're together. You've chosen to come here together. There's something very beautiful that resonates with you. And for people that do channel, they sometimes think to themselves, well, how is a potential partner going to take what I do, and be okay with it? Well, you've just got to trust that that you're going to come and meet someone that's maybe even a split part of your soul. That's that you've chosen to meet at the right time. I don't know. It's there's so many possibilities. And I think what you were saying as well just a moment ago, both of you, in the sense that with the flavored ice cream, what I've been told through my channeling as well, in a different way, was in the same way, in a sense, was that there is no one truth. We all are here to make up our own truth. And not to listen to even what the channel's got to say, in a sense. Make up your own truth. Because at the level that they go back to, they're still trying to work out what it's all about. That's very strange, but yeah.
We used to do a lot of question and answers after the channels in many of our 3 and 4 day seminars so that the people could interact directly with the group. And it was really magical because they would always start it with saying that we hope in this question and answer period that we actually help you remember your questions more than give you the answers. It's simply more important.
Yes, it is. Now, you're part of a group, as we've said before, and you actually are, I think, part of this group. Before you incarnated here, you were one of the members of the group, would you say?
That is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct. And I've only in the last 3 years have I found that out. I wrote a book about 3 years ago, which was it was a spiritual book, but it was a fiction book, basically they showed me things differently when I was first awakening, and I actually wrote a book about how they showed it to me, how the characters interacted, where the place that I have burned in my brain that I used to go all the time, things of that nature. So I actually wrote a book about it, and it's called Pretending to be a Human. And it starts when a gentleman dies. He basically is in the hospital and he dies, and what happens to him from that point, how he acclimates to home, to being a spirit and being connected to everything again, and how that works. And in that book, they showed me a lot of my own connections and personalities which deeply connected to me. And even as I was writing that book, I was remembering these people. Well, interestingly enough, they actually came into the channel. Ilra is one of the entities that I now channel, and he is one of the entities in my book. So is the Keeper of Time.
The Keeper of Time.
So 2 of them have actually come into an expression as a result of writing that book.
Well, there's 9 members of the group, and Steve is part of that 9. He's the interpreter. He's the one that brings the words through.
Right. And they've shown me them before. I could tell you there's one that's kind of like a scientist. He's like a physicist, or somebody who is helping very hard to bring back spirituality and physical sciences. And there's Merlia, who is the feminine form of Merlin. And then there's the Keeper of Time, which I know, which I know, and Ilra. And other than that, the others I'm still to be introduced to. I hear them as a collective voice when the group speaks, but I don't know them individually.
Oh, the group's famous for that. They'll drop some information to him, and then they'll say, more to be continued later. And it's like, tell me now.
Sometimes it's one word.
Yes, absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. And you mentioned something just previously as well. I know I'm darting all over the place here, but just want to go just back to something you said as well, which was when you said about the trust that people should have when channeling, because some people will just think they're channeling their higher self. And my father did say to me when I was channeling that, what you're channeling here, Kev, is probably just your higher self, because there's nothing new in the material that you've brought through so far. And that was a test for me, because it was like, well, yeah, that's kind of true in a way. I mean, am I just repeating things that I've heard? And when I went back to my group, in a sense, it was said that you never listen. You never listen. We come through in so many forms, through so many different people, but the message will keep coming through until you've basically listened to what we're trying to tell you. You always do it the most difficult way. Things on this planet do not need to be so painful, but you do it the most painful way. We care not whether you make the changes or not, but we care enough to come through. It doesn't, because you have free will basically to do with what you will.
That's it.
Well, and it's all so simple. We try to complicate it as humans.
We do. Humans have to complicate things in order to understand them. So we try to be patient with ourselves. There are 2 points about this, Kevin. Number one, when the information comes through, it always comes through our higher self. That's the flavor. That's kind of the personality that's on it. It has life experience and so forth. That's not bad. And that is not to be lessened, because the highest of high spirits has to speak to you through your higher self. And that always happens. So that will always feel like that. The challenge we have when we first start bringing in information, 2 things. Number one, we think we know what it's like. So we think we know what a good channel is, and we try to be one. We try to speak to the masses rather than learn to just listen and translate the message. So that kills a lot of people, because, and it's something everybody has to go through. Almost every channel will try that at some point. And when they come back to perfecting their message and what they are hearing, it becomes very personal. Now, the hardest part at this point is trusting yourself sometimes to speak it. Again, if you are a conscious channel, if you're unconscious, you don't have to worry about it. If you're a conscious channel like I am, you can't help but know that there's a crowd of people listening to what you're saying, and they're going to have a reaction to it. So we try to ignore that as best we can and just simply bring this through. What happens is it drops into the same thing that triggers your imagination centers. And most people believe they're making it up. The moment they think they're making it up, they throw it out and they lose the channel. And it happens over and over again.
It all goes back to that trust issue again. And one important point I want to bring up is that, especially when you're beginning to channel, you go to your father, your friends around you, and you say, what do you think? They see you as, they may love you, but they see you as you were, not who you're becoming. They don't see this magic that's happening within you.
Well, even if they tell you that you're not getting anything, or that maybe it's not what you think it is, Kevin, I can hear it in your heart. You would never stop doing it. If everybody in the world told you that, you would not stop channeling. So that needs to be listened to much more than everybody else.
Yeah.
Yes, our friends and family didn't quite understand what we were getting into.
They didn't.
But they see us being so happy that they say, well, it's working. Whatever you're doing, continue.
My father was a psychologist. He was very spiritual. He had a very difficult time making a living in this field.
A light worker before his time.
As many people did. And he basically warned me about that. He basically pulled me aside at one point, probably like your father did, and out of absolute love simply said, yeah, I just wanted to let you know there's a lot of people with a lot more credentials than you that have stepped up here and not made it. And about a month later, I was asked to speak at the United Nations in Vienna for the first time.
That's right.
And about 3 months after that, my father passed away very suddenly.
That he
so
knew.
He got to see
Oh,
that it
that's
was gonna
good.
work.
Oh, I'm glad he did. I'm glad. Now,
Yeah.
that's a beautiful little story. That is now that, but you've just led on to something really provocative there as well. The UN.
Yes.
Well, not provocative, but a great little intro into it. Tell us about that and why did that happen?
At the very beginning of our work, we had a lady who called us up. She was from Holland. She said, just like many other people had called us up, they said, I hear that you may come if we have enough people. I'm interested in doing that. Would you, think of coming to Holland? Well, we were doing things in the United States, fairly
We'd never
small,
been to
so
Europe.
we'd never been off this continent. We'd never traveled, done anything. And we said, well, in order to do that, we'd have to probably have 3 countries or 3 seminars that we could go to make that work. So I don't really think we're going to make it work, but thank you. We hung up the phone. She called me back a couple days later, and she said, well, I've got your 3 countries. And she said, we're going to bring you to Holland. You're going to jump over to Denmark, and then you're going to go to Vienna. And they're 3 of my friends that all know who you are. They've been following your work for a couple of years now and very excited about it. And you're going to have 3 different hosts. And I said, geez, I can't argue that.
Wow.
So we actually started making these arrangements,
Yeah.
about traveling to Europe. That was so exciting.
Yes.
And then we got a call from the host in Europe, and she said, by the way, while you're here, would you mind speaking at the United Nations?
In Vienna.
In Vienna. Because she worked for the United Nations, and she was
We
in charge.
laughed.
She was the one in charge of bringing in the speakers.
Yeah.
So I did a live channel in the United Nations, and then we went back 3 more times. And we had a total, and then we went twice to New York at the headquarters and did channels there.
Wonderful experience. I'll
Oh,
never
yeah.
forget the first time that Steve got that phone call saying, would you come to Europe and all this? And he yells out from his office, he says, Barbara, you want to go to Europe? And I says, oh, sure. Yeah, right. I thought he was just joking. And I was still working full time at that period.
Right.
And I had to get a leave of absence.
Yeah.
And my boss said, I took 3 weeks off. And she says, well, you have to do this. This is a once in a lifetime experience. Little did we know that we would be going to Europe quite often and meeting so many wonderful people.
We were in a different country every 2 weeks.
Oh, it's just incredible.
for 15 years.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yes. Well, I have to say that this January is our 20th anniversary
Yes.
of you connecting with the group.
It is. It's my 20th anniversary channeling the group.
That's anything
we're gonna do
special?
that.
Anything special planned for that?
Well, we have the Virtualite broadcast, which is our monthly free broadcast that we put on, and we're certainly going to have a big deal about that. We'll probably have cakes and bring in some old friends from all over the world.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to get into the Virtual Light broadcast very soon as well. Obviously, why do you think, in your opinion, I mean, this is maybe a stupid question, but I think it's maybe just one to ask in a sense as well. Why do you think the group comes through, in your opinion?
No, they specifically told me that they have been here always. They're not new. None of the group, none of the 8 of them, with the exception of me, have been to Earth. None of them have had incarnations on Earth. They are basically spirits that can reflect and help us from a larger perspective of being able to reflect our game that we have going on this planet. The reason that they have never approached us in these fashions before is that we couldn't hear it. Very simply, if we even go back 50 years, which is a very short time, if it didn't have a lot of pomp and circumstances around it, nobody could hear it. If you had an incredible truth and you spoke it just as plain, as simple as possible, mostly people could not hear it unless it was dressed up in some of their belief systems. Now that's changing. Humanity's evolving. Look at the collective of humanity. I mean, we are making decisions that are just incredible. Now, our governments are not quite always listening, I will say that, but the collective vibration of humanity is now tolerating things that we tolerated only a year ago. I'm sure it's that way in the UK and other parts of the world. We've seen it. There's an intolerance.
It is.
Yes. We say there's no more secrets
No more
because
secrets.
everything is out in the open. And I think the group chose us to do this work because we are very grounded people.
That's it.
We're just like everybody else trying to figure this life out. And we just feel blessed that we've been given this opportunity to connect with spiritual family all over the world. But there was a time that you doubted that the group was coming in at a channel. And what did they say? They will never leave you.
They told me they would never leave me, but then when I asked them, I wanted to know who they were, because in the beginning I was in my spiritual chat rooms, and everybody, this person's channeling this person's channeling this name, and it sounds wonderful. And I said, I need a name.
Yeah.
And they wrote back and they said, no, thank you. We're not going to do that. And then I had some people giving me advice about channeling, as I mentioned before. And this gentleman told me, they said, if you ask your entities who they are and they don't answer, that means they're the bad guys. And at that point, I got a little scared and I cut them off for 3 days. 3 days, I wouldn't talk to them. I just walked around in a drift.
Oh, he was depressed.
And then I finally kind of went knock, knock, or, are you there? And they said, yes, of course. We've never left you and we never will. We have been with you from the beginning of time. You are part of a small group of entities that have dedicated themselves toward the advancement and return of a unity. And they told me things about myself, about my connection with Barbara, about the connection with the group and so forth. And they also told me that humans simply give too much power to the labels. And their message was all going to be without labels. They wanted people to discern for the love content in the message and not the label. And that later is when when somebody asked me, well, is it a single entity or a group of entities? I said, it's a group of entity. And they said, well, what does your group say about this? That's where the group came from. That's where the name, the group, came from.
And
They
not that
never
long
told me
ago, they even had the group spelled with a small g instead of a capital G.
Right.
They said, you put your gods on high. What if you smelled them with a small g and had your gods walk alongside you, holding their hands out instead of putting them on a pedestal?
Well,
No,
it used to be we would follow the leader. Now we're following ourselves.
Yeah.
Of
We're
course.
the leaders. And
Yeah,
so,
we are, yeah.
these spirits, they say, you have the power as well.
Well, you look at some of these other talk shows that are out there, and I'm not, everything that happens in this reality is for a reason. Yeah, I'm sure. I know it is. But then you look at these fear-based talk shows, and they're so attractive, and you think to yourself, if there was a okay, so you got your fear-based talk shows. If there was a talk show that was purely about these type of messages, imagine how addictive that could be, and how much of a greater experience you could have in the moment now, because now is all that matters, of course.
That's it.
That is true.
Well, and we choose, and the group loves to make fun of us humans. They say, you're addicted to drama.
Yes.
They said you love to scare yourself. Just look at your movies. You love to scare yourself. So they say, go out, have a good time, go scare yourselves, and then come back and we'll play. That's kind of their attitude.
Now, I know we've not really talked about the books too much here, and I do feel a little bit guilty for that, but obviously people will just resonate with yourself just in this part of the, with this, way that we've done this interview so far.
Sure.
Because, I've gone through the books, and they are packed full of fantastic information. They really, really are. Just before we move on briefly as well, obviously you did a summit, a conference, a channeling conference recently that was headed by Lee Carroll. Now,
Yes.
I got to hear some of the extracts of that conference, and oh my God, it blew me away just how beautiful those messages was. What was that like, being there, surrounded by so many channelers on the stage, each taking your own message?
Well, we've done that with Lee for many years. We've been part of that group that comes back, and I kind of got a feeling this was his last year to do that particular reunion in this way. But we've done this many times with Lee. He's kind of invited us back. We got our start with him. He's just a magnanimous person who has started many
Always
channels.
been supportive of us.
Always been supportive of all the people that have come around him to try and gain their power. We've tried to take the lead and do the same with ours, and it's been a lot of fun. What happens is you are, what happens is I've got Rana Herman on my shoulder here. She's walking
Lovely
next
person.
to me, and just a person that I admire and love so deeply over so many years. And over here, I've got somebody walking in front of me who I've recently met, who's done a lot of channeling. And right in front of him is my brother Jeff, and Lee Carroll, of course, is heading the whole
Self.
thing up. Jeff and Linda Hoppy from the Crimson Circle, Fred Sterling, all the people that we have been around. So to us, it is a family reunion.
It was a
And it
family
was
reunion.
wonderful.
Yes.
To us, it was, we don't go there, we set up a table and everything else. And quite honestly, it usually costs us more to go there than we make. So it's not a money-making
It wasn't
thing
about
for us.
that.
It's about a family reunion. That's really what it
Reconnecting.
was about. And it was fun.
Well,
We had
we're
a
all so
ball.
busy doing our work that we don't get to see each other that
Yeah,
often.
that's right.
So this really was a chance to visit.
Right, to get back
And
together
then
with
to
people.
see all of these channels on the stage was quite breathtaking. It really
Yes.
was.
Oh, I can. Oh,
it's just
yeah.
beautiful.
I mean, just to hear it, I never got to see it, but just to hear the messages that you were all bringing forth, pretty incredible stuff, I have to say. You know, do you find that most people are receptive to your work, or is it a case of those who are meant to come across you come across you?
I used to worry about it. I don't anymore. I literally, this was the big one for me. Steve's acceptance. Steve is a channel. I could, when we got on the airplanes and sit down next to somebody we didn't know, because we were doing that all the time,
Yeah.
they'd ask what you do. Barbara here always starts conversations with people. And we get to that point where they want to know what we do. Well, you got a choice. You can say you're an author. Okay, that lasts for just a couple of minutes until they ask what kind of books you ask, right? You can say you're a seminar leader, but then they come in, what kind of So she had this whole routine that's all prepared about empowerment, and it's just about
Motivational
empowerment
speaking.
and motivational speaking and so
Safe,
forth.
right?
And I stopped that a long time ago. I just tell people I'm a channel. I talk to entities from the other side of the veil. Thank you very much.
We both do now.
And I just
We're
walk
proud of
away.
it.
I don't even try to explain it. Sometimes I have to say I probably should try to explain it a little more to people, but I was in so much fear of it myself.
Yes.
That when I finally got over it, I'm almost proud just
Yes.
to be a translator, because that's what I am. I'm
Because,
a spiritual
yes,
translator.
people will feel that hesitation,
Yep.
that uneasiness about you if you're not going to stand up and say, this is what I do and I'm happy about it and I'll tell you anything you want.
Yep.
And that's it. People are starting to understand about channeling
Yeah,
more.
they are.
You hear it in
It's a
movies
daily.
now.
Well,
and
it's
in
even
TV.
getting used correctly in the English language.
Yes.
It's being used that this person in maybe this actor was channeling this role.
Yes.
They were really channeling this person when they played the role. That's
Yes.
never been done before.
Yes.
The word channeling has never been used in that aspect now, and it's becoming commonplace.
Absolutely, and as my channel has told me, most material out there, be it a Bible or the Quran or whatever,
Yes.
it's all channeled. They may not have understood that's the process, but that's how it came about.
Well,
Yeah.
that's one of the interesting things that we do when we teach channeling classes. We try to show people how they've already been channeling,
Yes.
how they've
yes.
already used it, because we call it different things.
Yeah.
We label it different. People who go to work, they can't wait to get to work today because they're so good at what they do. Guess what? You're channeling. You're just channeling your work.
Do you think the majority of people out there, though, in a sense, who, for example, there's large YouTubers out there who get massive followings for entertainment, but we all need to be entertained. Entertainment's an important aspect of being on planet Earth. Of course it is. I'm not taking that away from them. But, wouldn't it be nice for some channels like yourselves to get that recognition that some of these, YouTubers who just post a few silly videos can get that same recognition with the work that you do? Or is it a case, would you say more, maybe, or maybe I'm answering my own question here, that those people, the masses, are not ready for an awakening like that, because the experience they came to have here does not mean they bump into someone like yourself, because that would take away the experience they're supposed to have?
A little bit of both. I actually believe it's a little bit of both. I believe that people that can't reconcile it with their own belief systems will simply not hear it. They won't understand it. It'll just kind of blow by them. They'll just say, oh, he's a weirdo that doesn't fit into something. Other people that have a resonance, an openness to be able to pick up a truth from many sources, will not even have to hear a word. Sometimes they'll see my picture. Sometimes they'll see the cover of one of my books, and they'll just know that they had to go there and find something out. And then they write me later and tell me about their experience. That happens all the time. So I am convinced that, number one, it's not my job to make sure that I'm reaching everybody. It's my job to reach those select few people that can hear me. And that is becoming much better with the technologies we do, which is why we do so much of our work on the internet.
Yes.
And that's maybe why you were chosen. That's maybe why you were chosen as well.
Well, that might be part of it. So today, instead of, we can go to different cities in the world. When we go to a city, we've always considered to be, if we could pull 70, 80 people together, we could make sense of it financially. It would be considered to be a success for us in those words. And that's always possible. But today we can reach 400 or 500 people, but they'll be in 25 countries.
Well, everything's changed with our work. We miss traveling, and we probably will get back to doing it somewhat, but not like we did before. That was too much of a hectic schedule. But the reason that we're doing it this way is the information from the group is Steve's receiving it so quickly that we're able to put together a seminar right away, where before we would travel to Europe and we'd have to have a year ahead of time what we were going to do. And things are changing so much. And that's why you haven't written a book lately.
That was it. The book, if you're writing a book, which that's a long process. And to get the stuff out. And for a short time there, probably about 3 years, this material was coming in too fast for me to do that with.
Yes.
I simply could not get it out. So I stopped writing altogether, stopped doing the books altogether, and just started broadcasting. And we have all the archives. They're all here from the last 3 or 4 years now, and and all the other things that we're doing, and we're still doing 2 to 3 seminars a month.
Right.
All the time.
So when you do the broadcast, is that paid for archived material, or is that how's that? Is that free, or how's that work?
The virtual light broadcast is free.
We have 2 different websites. One is lightworker.com, which is our nonprofit. All of our free material is over there. Virtual Light Broadcast, which is our 3-hour monthly broadcast, is all free. All that stuff's free. We also offer, many times, we'll have a 4 or 5 day seminar, and we'll offer the first day free. Those are available at Paths to Empowerment, and all of our paid seminars are at pathstoempowerment.com. I basically had to separate our nonprofit and our for-profit corporations, basically is what happened. So we do all of our seminars over at Paths to Empowerment, and you'll see the links back and forth wherever you go on the sites. There's lots of links back and forth, but we teach primarily online now and have been for the last couple of years. Barbara got sick about
3 years ago.
3 years ago,
right.
Almost died. And at that moment, I took all of our equipment and started broadcasting, and we turned it into this, and we've been doing it ever since.
The Spirit takes care of us, and the group takes care of us for sure.
It's absolutely true. Yeah, when the rug gets pulled out from under you and you land on your feet every time, you're getting some help.
Right. Well, I have to say, the group helps us, but he's the genius. I tell him that all the time because he's a technical whiz. If you were to look at our office, not many people could do this. Most people have to pay a lot of money to get what we have.
That's right.
It's his passion as well.
I have a job that pays for all my toys. I love it.
It pays for my clothes. I love that.
There you go.
No,
it's stage wear.
He's a man after my own heart. He really is, because my background's in electronic servicing. I've done, spent many years as a TV engineer, and that led to doing studio work and everything else. But so no, I do understand that, and the techie side does help, and it's helping with what you're doing as well. So are we right that when we look at when the audience looks at previous work that you've done with the virtual light broadcast, that was done in a studio in Vegas, was it? And you're not doing that type of show that way anymore. You're now doing it just with yourselves that are hosting and producing that show.
Right. For many years, we had it at a hotel.
We had a live audience for many years, and we had facilities. We actually had 4 different facilities since we've been here in Vegas that we did it at, that allowed us to bring in up to maybe 50 or 60 people. And we did that for a lot of years, but we had so many technical problems, so many challenges going down there, setting up all this equipment.
It's a lot of
3-hour
work.
Broadcast is there's just so many things that can go wrong. We just had too much problems. So after having a lot of frustrations with that, I said, it's time to bring it in-house into my studios where I can control it. And the only thing I don't have is the live audience. But we do have more capabilities of reaching across the world here than we did, and with a lot of the Skype technologies that are developing and stuff like that.
But the virtual live broadcast is not just Steve and me. We bring in guests. We have Sandy Sedgwick doing interviews, and in person and through Skype. And so it's 3 hours of just a lot of information.
Yeah, the latest fun stuff from,
Yes.
And of course it ends with a monthly channel from the group as well. And that's all free. That's the fun stuff that we do.
That's fantastic. Well, we're on the screen. We've got all your links just that have been popping up all the time and everything. So people can just go to those web addresses that you see now on the screen, and you'll be able to get much more information from there and see previous shows as well. I don't feel like I've done this interview much justice, really, because we haven't really got into many of the topics in the books. It's really been an interview about how you started off and about where you're going now. But to summarize this up, what would you say are some of the most important messages that the group want to get through to mankind right now, in a sense?
Biggest thing that we want to acknowledge is that we have moved out of an entire wave of an empowerment into a new one. The first wave of empowerment that humans had to go through was follow the leader. We had to learn how to form organizations, follow someone to do it. Then recently we moved more into follow yourself, which was the second wave of empowerment. The groups talked a lot about the second wave of empowerment, about learning to trust yourself as your own individual leader and still being able to play with the others as well. But now we've moved into a whole new area, and that's harmony. That's understanding that we're actually a part of each other. This is not easily understood, but I will simply tell you that we work with ISIS. We literally work to dissolve some of the problems in our world today, even on a political level, but we don't do it as we're the good guys and they're the bad guys. We do it as what part of us are they? And how can we communicate with that?
We're all people when it comes down to it. And I just encourage people to open your heart and just support each other and, encourage everyone to be the best they can and to be in their passion.
And you got to have fun.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, Steve and Barbara Rother, I just want to thank you so much for coming on today. It's been an absolute, complete pleasure, and I will definitely get you on the not-too-distant future.
Been a joy. Thanks,
Thank
Kevin,
you.
for being here, and keep up the good work yourself. You got a channel coming through, and I can't wait to see where it goes. Enjoy it.
Well, we've come to an end on today's show. Don't forget that you can watch and listen to all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests via themoreshow.co.uk, and do remember to like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.